Well, we are just hours away, obviously, from a high-stakes Democratic debate in Brooklyn, New York. I would do the math right now for the hours, but you can do it yourself. 247 delegates at stake in next week's New York primary. Bernie Sanders still trailing Hillary Clinton by a wide margin.
The Vermont senator is trying to rally support. He led a massive crowd in Manhattan last night. Sanders is confident his campaign will pull off an upset against Clinton, but as we mentioned, the numbers really aren't on his side. An average of recent polls shows Clinton with a double-digit lead over Sanders in New York. Joining us now are CBS digital journalist Hannah Fraser-Chanpong and Sean Gallitz. Hannah follows the Clinton campaign and Sean follows the Sanders camp. Good to see you guys. Finally in New York, and you're awake. This is great because you're usually, I'm sure, exhausted by what you do. Let's start with you, Hannah. Let's talk about tonight's debate. What is the Sanders campaign saying about what they hope to do tonight?
Well, I think we know that the Sanders campaign wants to make a big difference right now with this debate, move the needle in his direction for the primary. I think that the Clinton campaign, Hillary Clinton sort of previewed what she's going to do tonight in the past few days. She's hit him really hard on guns. She's talked a lot about immigration, and we asked her about it a few days ago when she was campaigning in Queens, and she says she's expecting a very lively debate.
Yeah, I meant to say you cover Clinton and Sean covers Sanders, but
yeah.
Yes.
And along the lines of lively, when you look at what Bernie Sanders was able to do here in New York last night with thousands on hand, there's just a different energy right now and feel. They still have a huge difference in disparity in numbers. What about the Sanders campaign? What is their sort of goal for tonight?
So you're right. His crowds are large, energetic. I followed him around New York a couple days ago, all over the state. He's getting crowds in Syracuse, Poughkeepsie, all over the place. I think what Hannah said was right. He really wants to do something tonight that's going to change the narrative. Recently, he's been talking a lot about momentum. He's won, I think 7 of the last 8 contests.
Right.
A lot of them have been caucuses and things like that, are a little bit smaller. And the delegate lead hasn't changed much for Clinton, at least the pledged delegates and stuff like that. So tonight, I think what they want to do is shake things up a little bit and move, the needle these last couple days before they vote on Tuesday, and hopefully try and catch Clinton here and get the upset.
Hannah, let me ask you, I want to ask both of you about the vibe at the respective rallies that you cover. What is the vibe like at a Hillary Clinton rally vis-a-vis a Bernie Sanders rally? Because when we see Bernie Sanders and his supporters, they look younger, they're more raucous. I wonder if hers is more of the traditional campaign where you see perhaps older people in the audience, more establishment politicians surrounding her on the stage. What's it like?
I mean, there's definitely a big mix of people at her rallies. I wouldn't say that it's all older people or all younger people. Recently, she's been really focused on rallying groups of people who have traditionally turned out for her: African Americans, Latino voters, people who are part of unions. And she's done a lot of events focused on those specific groups. So lately, that's what we've been seeing. But I would say that there is excitement at her rallies. They're definitely not as big as the crowds that Bernie Sanders.
They're not as big.
They're not as big.
Yeah.
Last night we were in the Bronx, and I think the crowd count that the campaign gave was a little 1,200, so a little over 1,000 people, but compared to 27,000, there's a difference.
And that sort of says something, right? I mean,
yeah, I think there's just an energy and an idealism and a hopefulness in the Sanders campaign. I think he's really, good at mobilizing these younger voters and things like that. We'll see how many of those people are registered in New York and can vote, right? I think we've talked
That's the question.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about how it's a closed primary, and Sanders might be bringing in people that have never kind of been brought in the process before, but those people might not also be registered to vote.
Do you hear anything in the Sanders camp about that idea if they don't? If they don't do in New York anything other than what the polls indicate, sort of how they go forward and still use that energy?
I think the energy will still be there. I think that there's a passion there that the Sanders campaign has. I think, if they lose here in New York, we'll see what the delegate count is and stuff like that. It'll hurt his overall message of this momentum and kind of carrying in and trying to get to the convention and challenge.
But they haven't given any indication as if we lose this, if we are not the nominee. You haven't heard any of that on their side. We certainly don't hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely a confidence there. Like they're going to push on. And Sanders has been, usually he couches it saying, if we have a high voter turnout, we're going to do really well. And we got to make this the highest turnout ever in a Democratic primary in New York and everywhere we go. But we'll see if that happens or not, and we'll see if he can carry this.
Before you guys go, I got to give a shout out because you guys work so hard. Everybody at CBS News is so proud of you. Our viewers may not know that this role is one that goes back many, many decades at CBS News, and you guys are our eyes and ears on the campaign trail, and it's so good to have you here. Thank you very much.
to be here. We're having fun.
Carrying the torch.
That's right.